The pounding on my door ripped me out of sleep like a scream in the dark. My eyes flew open and my heart started racing before my mind could catch up. For a second, I had no idea where I was. Then I saw the red numbers glowing on my alarm clock. 5 a.m. Another hard knock hit the door, louder this time, shaking the thin wood. My stomach dropped. Nobody knocks on your door at this hour with good news. I sat up, my chest tight, listening. The apartment was silent, except for the hum of the heater and my own breathing. I live alone in a small apartment in Seattle. Just me, my furniture, and the quiet I worked hard to build. After my breakup 3 years ago, I decided I liked it this way. No surprises, no drama. Just my job as a data analyst, my routines, and nights where the rain taps softly on the windows. This was not part of that plan. I swung my legs out of bed and stood up. The floor was cold under my feet. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand like it could protect me and walked toward the door. I was wearing an old gray t-shirt that hung off one shoulder and wrinkled sweatpants. My hair probably looked terrible. I was not ready for visitors, especially not at this hour. The knocking came again. "I'm coming," I called out, my voice rough from sleep. The hallway light outside my apartment had been half broken for months. When I leaned in to look through the peephole, all I could see was a blurry shape. Too tall to be a kid. Too still to be drunk. "Who is it?" I asked, my hand hovering over the lock. There was a pause, long enough that I thought maybe whoever it was had left. Then I heard a voice I knew, only it sounded wrong. Shaky. Thin. Almost broken. "Nathan, it's Victoria." My brain froze. Victoria. As in Victoria Brennan. As in the CEO of the tech company where I worked. The woman who ran meetings with hundreds of people like it was nothing. The woman whose name sat at the top of every major email. The woman people whispered about in hallways. That Victoria was standing outside my apartment at 5 in the morning. I unlocked the door without thinking and pulled it open. The sight in front of me knocked the air out of my lungs. She looked nothing like the powerful woman I saw every day at work. Her blonde hair was falling out of a messy ponytail. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her eyes were red and swollen like she had been crying for hours. The sharp green eyes that usually missed nothing looked tired and empty. "Victoria," I said. I forgot to call her Miss Brennan. "What happened? Are you okay?" She did not answer right away. Her gaze moved over me, taking in my t-shirt, my bare feet, the half-awake mess I was. Then her eyes slid past me into my apartment. The small living room. The old couch. The stack of books on the table. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Can I come in?" Every logical thought in my head started shouting at once. This was my CEO. Letting her into my home alone at this hour felt dangerous in every possible way. What if someone saw her? What if this was a mistake I could not undo? But then I looked at her face, at the pain she was barely holding together. I stepped back and opened the door wider. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Come in." She walked past me, and I caught the scent of expensive perfume mixed with something heavier, like wine. Her heels clicked softly on the floor as she moved into my living room, her step small and careful. Not the confident stride I knew so well. She stopped in the middle of the room and looked around. My thrift store couch. My old TV. A basket of clean laundry I had not folded yet. For a moment, I saw my life through her eyes. Simple. Small. Probably nothing like hers. "I'm sorry," she said, turning toward me. "I shouldn't be here. This is wrong. I should go." She took a step toward the door. Without thinking, I moved and blocked her path. "Victoria, wait," I said, keeping my voice low. "You came here for a reason. You don't have to leave. Just talk to me." She stared at me, torn between leaving and staying. Then her shoulders dropped and she let out a slow breath. "I had a date tonight," she said softly. She let out a laugh that held no joy. "I'm 41 years old and crying over a bad date like I'm a teenager." "Sit down," I said, pointing to the couch. Let me make some coffee." To my surprise, she listened. As I turned toward the kitchen, my heart was still racing. I had no idea why my CEO was in my apartment at dawn, or what she was about to confess. All I knew was that this morning was already changing everything. The coffee maker rattled as it started, the old sound filling the quiet space between us. I focused on it because if I looked at her again, I might forget how to breathe. This was my CEO sitting on my couch at 5 in the morning, and somehow it already felt strangely normal. "How do you take it?" I called from the kitchen. "Black." "1 sugar," she said. Her voice sounded steadier, like saying something simple helped her grab onto the ground again. I poured 2 mugs and carried them back. She was sitting on the edge of the couch, her back straight, hands folded tight in her lap like she was afraid to relax. I handed her the mug and sat across from her in my old armchair, leaving space between us. "Not too close. Not too far." "Thank you," she said. She wrapped both hands around the mug like she was cold and took a small sip. Her eyes closed for a second. "This is good." "It's just grocery store coffee," I said. She opened her eyes and looked at me in a way that made my chest feel tight, like she was really seeing me for the first time. "His name was Marcus," she said suddenly. "Marcus Chun, venture capitalist, big office downtown, drives a Tesla." I stayed quiet and let her talk. "We went to this fancy steakhouse," she continued, "the kind where everything costs too much and everyone whispers. He talked about himself for 2 hours. His money, his contacts, his ideas. Every time I tried to speak, he nodded and then kept going like I was never there. I could picture it too easily. Then, during dessert," she said, her voice dropping, "he told me he respected ambitious women. Said it was attractive. But then he said men still need to feel important. He said maybe if we were together, he could handle the big decisions so I would not have to stress about important things." Quote. My jaw tightened. "I did not throw my drink in his face," she said. "I wanted to. Instead, I paid for my own meal and walked out like the calm CEO everyone expects me to be." "Good," I said. "You did the right thing." Her laugh broke in the middle. Tears filled her eyes again. "Did I?" she asked. "Because I sat in my car for almost an hour after that. He is the 3rd man in 2 weeks who made me feel like I am too much, too successful, too opinionated, too independent." She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. "My ex-husband said the same thing," she went on, "that I cared more about the company than our marriage. Maybe he was right. Maybe I built everything and lost what actually matters." "That's not true," I said before I could stop myself. She snapped her gaze to me. "How would you know?" I swallowed. "Because anyone who says you are too much is really saying you are more than they can handle. That is not your fault." She stared at me, stunned. Something in her face softened. "How do you do that?" she asked quietly. "Do what?" Quote. "Say exactly the right thing," she said. "You have been doing it since I got here." I shrugged. "I just treat people like people." She went quiet after that, the room filled with the soft sound of rain starting outside. Then she set her mug down and stood up. I stood too, my body reacting before my brain. "I went home after that date," she said. "To my penthouse, perfect furniture, perfect view." And I stood there in the dark and realized I could not remember the last time I felt happy. She looked at me, fear clear in her eyes. I thought about work, about people there, and I realized you are the only person who treats me like I am human. My heart started pounding. "You hold the elevator," she said. "You say good morning like you mean it. You asked me once if I was okay when I stayed late. Nobody else did." I remembered that night. How tired she looked behind the glass walls of her office. "I looked up your address," she said softly. "I know that was wrong, but I needed to see this. A real life, a real person." She stepped closer. I did not move. "You are the only person I wanted to talk to," she whispered. Her hand lifted slowly and rested against my chest. I could feel her warmth through my shirt. I knew she could feel my heart racing. "I can feel it," she said. "So maybe I am not the only one feeling something." My throat felt tight. "I feel it too," I said. "But I am scared." "Of me?" "Of everything," I said. You are my CEO. If this goes wrong, I lose my job, my life, everything I rebuilt." She nodded slowly. "So, what do we do?" "We slow down," I said. "We do not decide anything right now. We think. We breathe." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I came here hoping you would tell me I was crazy." "I know," I said. "But I have never been good at easy." We stood there as the sky outside began to lighten, both of us caught between fear and something that felt like hope. When she finally left, my apartment felt too quiet. Her perfume lingered in the air. Her empty mug sat on the table like proof it was real. I knew one thing with sharp clarity. Nothing in my life was going to be simple after that morning. Monday morning felt wrong from the moment I woke up. The gray Seattle sky pressed against the windows, but everything inside me was loud and restless. I made coffee and drank half of it without tasting it. My apartment still smelled like her perfume. Her empty mug sat on the table like proof that I had not imagined any of it. At work, I arrived early like always. I swiped my badge, rode the elevator up with coworkers talking about a football game, and nodded at the right moments. My mind was somewhere else. I wondered if she was already here. I wondered if she regretted everything. I opened my laptop and stared at numbers, trying to hide in them. Spreadsheets made sense. Feelings did not. At 10:15, my calendar pinged. All hands meeting, 10:30 a.m. main conference room. My stomach tightened. Big meetings never came without consequences. When I walked in, the room was already full. People spoke in low voices, holding coffee cups like shields. I stood near the back, where I liked to be invisible. At exactly 10:30, the door opened. Victoria walked in. She looked like herself again. Hair neat. Makeup perfect. Navy suit sharp and clean. Her heels clicked with confidence. If I had not seen her in my living room hours before, I would have thought nothing was wrong. But I saw the shadows under her eyes. I saw the tightness in her shoulders. She began to speak, calm and clear. "Cascade equity, acquisition offer. No decisions yet, protections for employees." Questions came. She answered everyone with control and strength. Every now and then, her eyes swept the room and landed on me. Only for a second. Each time, it felt like a hand on my chest. I looked away. I did not trust my face. When the meeting ended, the room filled with noise. People stood up fast, talking at once. I tried to slip out with the crowd. Nathan Pierce. Her voice cut through everything. I froze. "Could you stay for a moment?" she asked. "I have a question about the quarterly projections." The words sounded professional. We both knew they were not. "Sure," I said. The room slowly emptied. When the door closed, the silence felt heavy. We stood on opposite sides of the room like there was an invisible line between us. "How are you?" she asked softly. "I should ask you that," I said. "That was a lot." "I meant what I said the other night," she said. "In your apartment. I meant all of it." My heart pounded. "What do you want me to say?" "I want the truth," she said. "Did you feel anything? Or was it just me?" I could lie. It would be safer. I could go back to my quiet life and pretend this never happened. "You are not alone," I said. "I felt it too." Something in her relaxed. "Then why are we standing so far apart?" she asked. "Because I am terrified," I said. "You are my boss. This could ruin everything." "We can be careful," she said. "But I cannot pretend nothing happened." I swallowed. "I need time." She nodded. "Take it." "I will not push you." She left, and the room felt empty again. The day crawled. I stared at my screen, waiting for a message that did not come. When I got home that night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. It was her. She said she got my number from HR and admitted it was probably wrong. She asked if we could talk somewhere neutral. My thumb hovered over the screen. I could say no. I could choose safety. "When?" I typed. "Friday night. Brewhaven on Pine Street." I agreed before I could change my mind. The week stretched on forever. At work, we were careful, polite, distant. Outside, my thoughts never left her. Friday came. Brewhaven glowed warm against the dark street. She was already there, sitting in the back corner with 2 cups on the table. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I answered. She remembered my coffee order. We talked. Slowly, honestly, about fear, about loneliness, about wanting something real. "I am tired of running my life like a company," she said. "I am scared of being not enough," I admitted. "So what do we do?" she asked. "We take it slow," I said. "Careful, honest." She smiled. "I like that." When we left, we did not touch. We just stood there a moment longer than needed. Something had started. And I knew it was only the beginning. The weeks that followed felt strange and steady at the same time. At work, everything looked the same on the surface. I sat at my desk, ran reports, joined meetings, and nodded along like nothing in my life had shifted. Victoria stood at the front of conference rooms, sharp and calm, guiding the company through uncertainty. But outside the office, everything was changing. We started small on purpose. Coffee on Saturday mornings, walks along the waterfront when the air smelled like salt and rain, quiet movies in theaters where nobody cared who you were. We talked more than anything. About our pasts, about what scared us, about the lives we thought we were supposed to want. She told me about growing up in a small town in Oregon with a single mom who worked nonstop, about pushing herself because she was afraid of ending up with nothing. I told her about my parents, about my mom's little bookstore that never made much money but always felt warm and safe. I told her about Emma and how she called me average when she left. "You are not average," Victoria said every time. "You are steady." There's a difference. There were moments when I almost reached for her hand and stopped. Moments when she leaned in while laughing and my heart raced. We waited. Somehow, waiting made everything feel more real. At the same time, the acquisition talks grew louder. Meetings ran late. Lawyers appeared. Some nights she looked exhausted in a way sleep could not fix. One evening she came to my apartment again. This time it was not dawn. It was 8 at night. She looked drained, her confidence worn thin. "Long day," I said. 3-hour board meeting," she answered. They raised the offer. We sat on the couch, the same one she had perched on weeks before. "What do you want?" I asked. "For the company or for me?" she asked back. "Both." "For the company it could be great," she said. "For me it feels like a door opening." "A door to what?" "To stepping away," she said. "To having a life that is smaller and more human." My chest tightened. "You would give up being CEO?" "Not for you," she said quickly. "For me, but you are part of why I believe something different is possible." The words stayed with me long after she left. Then came the meeting. All hands. Mandatory. The room felt heavy with rumors and fear. Victoria stood at the front, tired but steady. The board had accepted the offer. Jobs were safe. Then she said it. She was stepping down. The room erupted in shock. Applause. Tears. Cheers. I watched her smile through it all, knowing how much this cost her. Later, in a quiet hallway, she leaned against the wall like she was finally allowed to be human again. "I did not do this for you," she said, "but you helped me see another way to live." "And now?" I asked. "In a few months," she said, "I will not be your boss anymore." Hope flared in my chest. "What if I do not want to wait to say how I feel?" I asked. "Then say it," she whispered. I told her. About her courage. About the night she knocked on my door. About how I was falling for her. She told me she felt the same. I hugged her then. Just a hug. Careful. Needed. The months after that moved slowly and fast all at once. She prepared to leave the company. I watched her say goodbye to something she built. On her last day, after the speeches and cake, she stood in the empty room with her hands in her pockets. "So," I asked, my heart racing, "are you still my CEO?" "Not anymore," she said with a smile. She asked me on a real date, as equals. I said yes. When she asked if she could kiss me, I did not hesitate. The kiss was soft and careful, full of everything we had held back. When we stepped outside together, side by side, the air felt different. For the first time, the future did not feel quiet. It felt open. Our first real date felt simple, in the best way. No fancy restaurant. No expectations. Just dinner at a small place near the water where the lights were low and nobody cared who we were. She wore jeans and a soft sweater. I wore the jacket I always wore. We laughed more than I expected. The kind of laughter that comes when you stop guarding every word. We talked about normal things, food we loved, places we wanted to visit, music that stayed with us longer than it should. Every once in a while, our hands brushed on the table, and each time it sent a quiet spark through me. When we walked afterward, the city lights reflected on the water. She slipped her hand into mine without asking. It felt natural, like something my body already knew. "I forgot what this feels like," she said. "Like what?" "Being seen without being evaluated," she said. We kissed again that night, longer this time, still gentle, still choosing not to rush. Over the next weeks, we settled into something real. She officially left the company. I stayed. The office changed, but my work stayed steady. Outside of it, my world grew. She started building her consulting firm slowly, choosing projects that excited her instead of drained her. Some mornings, she worked from my kitchen table with her coffee and laptop, humming softly while I ran numbers at my desk nearby. One night, she asked me a question that stayed with me. "Have you ever thought about wanting more freedom?" she asked. "I like stability," I said. "I like knowing where my feet are." She smiled. Stability and freedom do not have to be enemies. The idea scared me more than I wanted to admit. Then, one evening, as rain tapped against the windows, she showed me a simple plan. Freelance work, fewer hours, more choice. A life built on intention, not fear. "You would not be doing it alone," she said. "We would build it together." The word "we" warmed something deep in my chest. I realized then that the quiet life I loved did not have to mean a small life. It could mean a full one. The first time I stayed at her place overnight, I expected it to feel overwhelming. Instead, it felt peaceful. The city looked different from her windows, quieter somehow. More honest. We moved slowly, carefully. We talked through everything: fears, boundaries, what we needed when things felt heavy. One night, lying beside her, she traced small circles on my arm and said, "Thank you for not trying to fix me." I smiled. "Thank you for letting me just be." The relationship was not loud. It did not need to be. It was steady. And for the first time in my life, I was not afraid of wanting more. I was afraid of not choosing it. Part 5. Our first real date felt simple in the best way. No fancy restaurant, no pressure, no pretending. Just dinner at a small place near the water where the lights were warm and the noise stayed low. She wore jeans and a soft sweater, not the sharp suits I was used to seeing. I wore my usual jacket. We both looked like ourselves. We talked easily, like the tension had finally loosened its grip. About food we loved, places we wanted to visit, and small memories that stuck with us longer than they should have. Every now and then, our hands brushed on the table, and each time it sent a quiet spark through me. When we walked afterward, the city lights reflected on the water. She slipped her hand into mine without asking. It felt natural, like something my body already knew. "I forgot what this feels like," she said softly. "Like what?" I asked. "Being seen without being measured," she said. We stopped near the railing. She looked up at me, nervous and hopeful all at once. When we kissed, it was slower than before. Still careful, still choosing not to rush, even though neither of us wanted to pull away. Over the next weeks, a new rhythm settled into our lives. She officially stepped away from the company. I stayed. Work continued, but it no longer felt like the center of everything. Outside of it, my world expanded. She started building her consulting firm slowly, choosing projects that excited her instead of drained her. Some mornings, she worked at my kitchen table, laptop open, coffee beside her, humming softly while I ran reports nearby. It felt strange and right to share space like that. One night, as we sat on the couch with takeout boxes between us, she asked, "Have you ever thought about wanting more freedom?" "I like stability," I said. "I like knowing where my feet are." She smiled. Stability and freedom do not have to cancel each other out. The idea stayed with me. A few days later, she showed me a simple plan: freelance work, fewer hours, more choice, a life shaped around intention instead of fear. "You wouldn't be doing it alone," she said. "We'd build it together." Quote. The word "together" settled deep in my chest. The first night I stayed at her place, I expected to feel overwhelmed. Instead, it felt peaceful. The city looked different from her windows. Quieter somehow. More honest. We talked late into the night about boundaries, about fears, about what we needed when things felt heavy. Lying beside her, she traced slow circles on my arm. "Thank you for not trying to fix me," she whispered. I smiled. "Thank you for letting me be enough." Our relationship was not loud. It did not need to be. It was steady, warm, and real. And for the first time in my life, I realized the quiet life I loved did not mean a small life. It meant choosing what mattered. The months after that felt like standing in sunlight after a long winter. Nothing dramatic changed overnight, but everything felt different. Lighter. More honest. Victoria's consulting work began to take shape. Small companies. Real conversations. Fewer boardrooms and more coffee shops. I watched her come alive in a way I had never seen at the office. She laughed more. She slept better. She stopped carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. I stayed at my job at first. I liked the routine. I liked knowing where my next paycheck was coming from. But the idea she planted kept growing. Freedom did not mean chaos. It meant choice. Slowly, carefully, I started taking freelance projects on the side. One client, then another. I worked late nights and early mornings, scared and excited at the same time. When I doubted myself, she never pushed. She just believed in me quietly, the way I had believed in her. "You don't have to be fearless," she told me once. "You just have to be honest about what you want." We built our life the same way, slowly, on purpose. Some nights were spent cooking in my small kitchen. Others in her apartment with the city lights glowing outside. We argued sometimes. About schedules, about space, about fear. But we never stopped talking. Never stopped listening. One rainy Sunday morning, we lay in bed watching the gray light move across the ceiling. She traced my hand with her fingers. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "The knock?" I said. She nodded. "All the time," I said. "If I hadn't opened the door, none of this would exist." She smiled softly. "I almost didn't knock." I turned to face her. "What stopped you?" "I was afraid you wouldn't see me," she said. "Not the CEO. Just me." "I saw you," I said, "right away." She leaned in and kissed me, slow and sure, no hesitation left between us now. A year later, my life looked nothing like the one I thought was fixed. I worked for myself. I chose my projects. Some months were tight. Some were comfortable. All of them felt honest. Victoria's firm grew steadily. Not fast, not flashy, but strong. She worked hard and then stopped when she needed rest. She learned how to leave work at the door. We moved into a place together near the water. Not too big, not too small. A place where mornings were quiet and evenings were warm. Sometimes we sat on the couch in silence, just enjoying the fact that we were not alone. One night, as we stood on the balcony watching the city lights, she turned to me. "Do you miss the quiet life?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment, about my old apartment, my routines, my safe distance from everything. "I still have it," I said. "It just looks different now." She smiled and rested her head against my shoulder. The knock at my door at 5 in the morning did more than wake me up. It broke open a life I thought was settled and showed me something I never expected. Love does not always arrive gently. Sometimes it shows up tired, shaking, and honest, asking to be let in. And sometimes, when you open the door, you find a future you did not even know you were waiting for.